Okay, welcome everybody to the joint conceptual meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission for December the 9th, 2021. Just by quick call to order, Marcia's not here yet, Jimmy's not here yet, Scott is present, Lindsay's present, Alma present, Ann and Williamson, okay. And Alderman Berger. Here. Matt Brown. Here. Alderman Potts. Here. Alderman Baggett. Present. Alderman Barnhill. Here. Alderman Blanton. Yes. And Alderman Hanson. Here. And Mayor Moore.
Present.
We will give y'all the gold star tonight for full attendance on the part of the Board of Aldermen. And I'll have to chide some commissioners. Okay, accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to view this meeting. The public may view the workshop in the following ways. Watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. Watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts. Attend in person in the boardroom. The public may also watch the meeting on the TV in the lobby. So we'll start off. Emily's got one announcement for us tonight. Emily?
Yes, I forgot what my announcement was, but I have remembered. So we have a really packed agenda tonight. We did have one development plan application that would have been on this agenda, but due to timing constraints, per the zoning ordinance, I've waived their joint conceptual workshop application. And what it is essentially is at Carruthers Crossing West at Liberty and Carruthers. They are just asking to add a daycare as a permitted use on that site. It's a mixed-use development, and I thought the impact would be minimal to add that as a permitted use in their commercial part of their plan. So I wanted you to be aware that that request will be coming through the approval process, but you won't be hearing a presentation on it tonight. If you have any questions, I can get you in touch with the applicant, though.
Great, thank you, Emily. Okay, item number one, and as Emily said, we do have a pretty full agenda tonight. So item number one is discussion of a development plan proposing a mixed-use development with 2,616 square feet of office space and 20 multifamily units on 3.56 acres located at 201 Cool Springs Boulevard. Applicant, Greg?
Thank you. Hello, my name is Greg Gamble. I'm the land planner and consultant for Innovations Group. Innovations Group is proposing this mixed-use development, and Eric Powers, architect and owner of Innovations Group, will also be presenting with me tonight. Architect is Integris, civil engineer is Civil Site Design Group, and we have representatives from those firms as well here if you have specific questions. The property is located on Cool Springs Boulevard, directly adjacent to NHC. It is on the north side of Cool Springs Boulevard, as shown on the graphic here on the left. The property is currently zoned Regional Commerce 6. Envision Franklin identifies this property also as Regional Commerce. In Envision Franklin, it states that new multifamily residential is encouraged within Regional Commerce to create lively, walkable neighborhoods near restaurants, shops, grocery stores, and workplaces. The proposed development is 18 for-sale condominium units and 2 office condominium units. The residential condominiums will all have executive office suites on the first floor, giving the ability to have some live-work opportunities there. I'm going to turn this over to Eric, and you want to walk them through the architecture. Here's the laser pointer if you want to point things out.
Okay, well, as Greg, I'm Eric Powers, president of the Innovations Group. We're the architects and developers on the project. So, yes, so to give you an outline, we're envisioning this project as a little bit of a unique project. We think it fits very well on Cool Springs Boulevard, and we think it fits well with the Envision Franklin and what we're trying to do, as Greg has stated. We do have these high-end luxury residential units. They will have an executive office suite inside the units that provide the opportunity for a lot of our clients that are coming to the market in that particular zone in our community, and can utilize this as a place to live, as well as have their office downstairs. So we think it's going to be a great opportunity for executives that may be participating in some of our larger corporations out there that may want to have an opportunity like this, or they may also service clients that want to have a presence in the market here and be able to do a live work. As we all know, in our post-COVID, I'll call it post-COVID, I don't know what we are in COVID, but whatever it is at the moment, we do think we're going to see some percentage of live work be more popular as a permanent opportunity for folks as they utilize the space. These are designed to be a luxury type unit. They're a higher end product. They're going to have a lot of neat amenity package. If you look at the layout up here, you can see. Okay. Okay. Am I going the wrong way? Hang on. Yeah, so this shows the floor plan layouts, and there we go. It's got the pointer to work here. So the pointer doesn't show up in the other areas, so I don't know how effective that will be for you guys to be able to see. The residential units, office space on the first floor. The office spaces, we're calling them an executive office suite. There you go. If you want to point back there, yeah.
This is the office suites on the ground floor, and then you have two of the standalone office.
Yeah, and the executive office suites are not just a room with a desk. We envision those being, having a living room space in them, an office space, a conference area in there, small conference table, so that, sure. So they will have, they're an executive office suite with living space, office space, as well as a conference area inside their suite. So we think it will be a nice environment to be able to work from home and do that type of thing. We do have two additional just office condos that will be exclusive office condos that are going to be on the front. They're in the purple in the center of the screen there, and they will be standalone single-story office condos. And so we'll have some of that in our mixed uses in addition to the blend of the offices inside the residential units. Look right here. We do have, there are 3-story condos right now on the space, and they do all have rooftop balconies that overlook the golf course. With where this property is, it is nice in that it's adjacent to NHC. There's a lot of green space that's there between us and NHC, and obviously that's going to be maintained. So that being able to have the views out over that green space, we think, are a nice feature, as well as the views out over the golf course. We've been strategic in the designs to allow the units on the right to be lower than the units on the left, so that the units on the left also have the opportunity for views out over the golf course and over the green space. Here's some visuals of how that works. There is a courtyard in the center of the space. And so inside the courtyard, the idea is you're able to come up to the front door of these spaces that open into the courtyard. When you come into the space, you come into the office area of the space. With the idea of, again, COVID in mind, or post-COVID in mind, you can, if you did want to use this and have somebody come visit you in your office, you can do that on the first floor. They can come in the first floor space, but not necessarily be allowed to go into the rest of the residence unless you choose to allow them to go in the rest of the residence. So we think that's an important feature because of the world we're living in today. We're going to have some nice water features on this space. The area you see in the center here, if you could point to it, Greg. The center area is an elevator that goes from this plaza level down to the parking level beneath. I'll go over the parking level here shortly with you. But it allows people to park in the garage and come up to the plaza and then come over to the front doors. So if you have a guest that comes in and parks and wants to come up, they can come up to the front door and knock on the door and come in that way. So. A few additional views. You can see that we are utilizing a combination of brick and glass in the designs of these, and a lot of glass. We think it's important with the views that are on the site, and it just is going to create a nice environment of space with the glass that we've integrated, and then ultimately the rooftop balconies up top. And there's just a few other slides that show you some of the flavor of the space. This is from the backside of the property looking back in. We do have a swimming pool planned in the complex. We have a whole amenity package planned for these units, which we think is very important. They have a swimming pool. It has a clubhouse that Greg's pointing to there. Inside the clubhouse, we have abilities to go down and enjoy the clubhouse right by the pool. It also has two other small conference rooms in there, so if you needed to have a meeting and you didn't want to have a meeting inside your residence, you can come down and use one of the meeting rooms in the clubhouse. The top floor of the clubhouse there is an exercise room, another one of the amenity factors. So you have the abilities to go down and exercise and look out over the pool, look out over the golf course while you're exercising. We think that's a very nice component. Outdoor space where you can sit and lounge and relax, or come down and sit with a client and or friend and meet down there for a meeting on the plaza as well. The parking level underneath, this is what we would call a podium parking level. It's a structured parking level underneath this complex. It will have a security access to it so that you can come through a security gate that will allow you into the parking garage. And so as you come in the parking garage, we'll have obviously the parking for each individual condominium. And one of the neat features that we built into this design is the abilities to come in and park your car right in front of your own private elevator, and every condominium will have its own private elevator. So if you're coming in from the grocery store and you want to bring your groceries, you get out of your car, get on the elevator, and because the houses or the condos are designed with the office on the first floor, the design of the units are what we would call an upside-down house. So you come into the first floor, which is the office. The second floor is the master bedroom suite. On the second floor master bedroom suite, it has the master bedroom. It also has a private library. It has a studio space. And then when you go to the third floor, that's where the living space is, the living room, the kitchen. Those type spaces are on the third floor. But with the private elevators, it's a non-issue because you can get out of your car in the basement and get on your elevator. When you get off, you're right at your kitchen. So convenience. We've tried to really think through how to design this for the opportunity for convenience and luxury. We think that's an important feature of what we're trying to do with this development. So you do have the center elevator, which just goes from the garage to the plaza, where you can go up that way, or you can get on your private elevator and go up in your own suite if you want to do that. One last feature, then I'll hand it back to Greg. The other nicety of this property that we like a lot is the abilities of the walking trail system that the property backs up to. The walking trail that you see in green is already constructed from our site all the way over to the Galleria. The plans for the extension from our site all the way into downtown Franklin are already in place. I think most of that's already approved and ready to go. I know there's some overlap with sewer improvements that are going on as well, but we are going to be excited to see the opportunity of that walkway continue on to downtown Franklin, because we think our clients that would be buying these units would very much like the opportunity to be able to bicycle and walk from here to downtown Franklin. We have so many great things that go on in downtown Franklin, and so just being able to relax and walk and go in and out that way, we think is a huge bonus, in addition to just the abilities to walk and exercise and do those types of things on the walking trail. So, Greg?
And on this plan as well, we're showing the proposed Haven development that's directly next door. Something that you're considering now, I think 290 apartments, and they have, as a part of their proposal, an off-site road improvement to kind of redesign that area right there at the Aspen Grove Medical Building to make that a right-in, right-out. So we're showing that here on this plan, but you'll also see on this plan how important it will be for them to have connectivity back over to the signalized intersection, and how that's being accomplished through this plan. So with that, we'll pause and answer any questions that you may have, or items you'd like for us to consider.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Marcia. Scott, we'll start with Commissioner Scott Harrison.
Just a couple of questions. These are gonna be
I'm sorry.
bedroom units? Or they're gonna be more than one bedroom?
I'll let it-
Staff.
All the units are going to be three-bedroom units.
Bedroom units.
Three
Okay, I was
bedroom.
just confused because you said natural on the second floor.
There'll be three-bedroom units, and one of the other features I didn't point out on the third floor, which is a neat feature, is we do have full rooftop balconies that overlook the golf course, but on the third floor, we have a lanai, which is a covered balcony built into that with an operable glass wall between the lanai and the living space. So you get a lot of neat flexibility in how you can utilize the space as a residence here.
Quick question on the right in, right out. I know this is not you, but it's, how can you do a right in and right out on a divided road? Cool Springs Boulevard's divided. I mean, I know there's this cut right there.
They're putting in a striping that is going to allow for a U-turn, but not a left turn.
Okay.
Is my understanding.
That's just kind of confusing. Other than that, it looks good.
Okay. I'm sorry, staff. Amy, go ahead.
That's okay. Let me explain the process that's happened so far. This is a little bit out of our typical process. Usually, we have joint conceptual workshop happen after the project has gone through pre-application and initial submittal. Because of the double meeting and squeeze November, December, this project has only gone through pre-application stage. So we've only had one shot to look at it, and the applicant has not had a chance to respond to our comments. I do want to point out some of the things we've been talking about with the applicant. Overall, the project meets Envision Franklin. We've been working with them on what's along the frontage of Cool Springs Boulevard. We want to make sure that that office component is there and is activated. So they're working on the architecture right now to make sure that all of those office entrances are really emphasized along Cool Springs Boulevard. Some of the architecture also doesn't yet meet the building type standards for the zoning ordinance. So again, we're working on that with them. Again, it's just their first stab at this. We've made those comments to them. There is an issue right now with the floodplain and how the floodplain crosses through the building. We've alerted them to that. The zoning ordinance allows for parking structures to be in the building, but the portion of the building that's in the floodplain has to be separate from the rest of the building. That's kind of confusing, but as long as it's a single building that's intruding into the floodplain, the entire building is considered in the floodplain. We're working on a way to try to separate the building with an expansion joint or something like that so that it's determined to be separate buildings so that the building can stay as is and meet the floodplain requirements. Again, we're working through that with the floodplain administrator and engineering.
Amy, this is the map here.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can see where that floodplain, the FFO line goes through the site today. Also, the units that are touching that floodplain will have to be moved. That floodplain line essentially rises to the sky, and residential units can't be in the floodplain. So we'll have to look at how they can reshape those units a little bit so they are completely outside of the floodplain. Lastly, there's some stormwater components that they're planning right now that don't quite meet our BMP manual or stormwater manual, and they're going to need to potentially relocate those somewhere on the site. But again, engineering is working with them on that. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Okay. Now, to comments, questions.
Skip me.
I'll skip Scott. Okay, I'm next. I have a question about the floodplain. So, are there any other modifications to the site anticipated with respect to your ability to meet the floodplain requirements, or adjust the site, or what?
Yeah, we recognize that we fully realize we got to keep all the residential units out of the floodplain. So first and foremost, I have to say that. We've ended up with the parking structure that's extending out into the floodplain. But because the unit's set on top of the parking structure, and working with staff, that's the continuity of that flow that's different. We actually came before you guys and had the site approved as a 85,000 square foot office building. We decided the multifamily is a better use, is why we're here today. But obviously, when it was office and that the parking structure could extend out and be continuous under office rules, that's allowed, but under the residential rules, it's not. And so we're working on with the staff and with our engineering teams to to create an isolation between the two structures so that they will be totally independent when we get done. So we fully feel we can solve the request that the staff is making to us right now.
Great, thank you. Okay, Commissioner McLemore.
Those are some of my questions about the plan, so those have been answered. And it has to be approved by FEMA before anything is done, right?
Well, before there's any floodplain manipulation, it sounds like they're not intending to manipulate the floodplain, they're intending to leave it as is that correct?
We're hoping to. We're hoping that we won't have to manipulate any flood.
Okay,
That's
so-
our first choice, is we're trying to make sure we're staying in compliance so we don't have to do that.
Okay, so then FEMA does not have to sign off on it, right? Can you hear me? I have to do that. So FEMA doesn't have to sign off on it. I don't know why. Being the spikes don't work. I have to stand up. I mean, it's not, look, I have to do this.
We need longer mics, it's okay.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
we can hear you, and you're right, FEMA does not need to sign off.
Okay. I'm happy to see some for sale units. We get so many apartments and, you know, we still have that, what about 8,900 in the pipeline, so for sale. And the general question, usual question that I ask about the price points, they're luxury, so it's no sense in me asking about the price points as far as affordability is concerned, because you said luxury, so that's the answer. And I guess that's all for right now.
Thank you, Commissioner McLemore. Alderman Peterson?
My questions were going to be about the floodplain also. The other question is this the current floodplain map or the new one that's, I don't know whether it's ever been officially approved or not?
It's the current floodplain. Is that correct, Sean? Most current data that's available to us?
But what about the one that was supposed to be, we don't have any of our engineers here, do we? The one,
We'll look into that, see if there are any differences in the line
Yeah.
changes, of course.
Those are,
Saying that it's not released yet,
not released?
so we're working on what we have today.
so anything in the pipeline, any flood maps in the pipeline are accessible through the FEMA's Map Service
That's
Center.
right.
And they would show up as either preliminary maps, or as they advance through the approval process, they would become pending maps. But they should be accessible and viewable on the Map Service Center website, so,
We can take a look at that.
yeah.
Our floodplain administrator reviewed this project,
Right.
and she didn't make any comments about that, but we'll make sure that we do a double check for you to make sure we're doing the most accurate ones.
All right. Okay. Commissioner Williamson?
Yeah, it sounds like there's plans to kind of, look at separating those residential buildings out of the floodplain. And other than that, I just think it's a very interesting concept.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Berger?
I have a question on how you're utilizing, I'm always curious about the rooftops. Is it individual owners have their individual rooftop space?
Yes, ma'am. That is how it's done, right?
Okay. And then the underground parking, excellent. And excellent that you've got, these are for sale units, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I think that it's interesting you've got individual, how many units altogether?
18 residential units and 2 office condo units.
Okay. And those condo units for the office is strictly office?
That's correct.
No.
The office condos are strictly office. The office space that's inside the residential units
Right.
obviously is the
Oh,
difference.
So
I'm looking behind you, I want to clarify.
interesting that you've got elevators for each of them to each floor. To me, I think that would be
That's a unique feature that.
expensive and the maintenance would be tough, but
Yeah, these being higher-end luxury units,
Yeah.
we're going, the clientele that we think are
Yeah.
going to be buying these are going to be, the corporate executives, those
Right,
type
they're gonna
things.
want that.
And we're not
Yeah.
building, 100 or so of these.
No,
We don't think there's
yeah.
a market for that many, but we think for this quantity and everything,
yeah,
that's why.
these will be gone, and there will be a market for some more of those.
Yeah, we think so
So,
too.
and maybe not one that has elevators all the way to the third floor for somebody, but, the condos are, you know, few and far between right now where people can get them. Greg, did you have something? Did you have something you wanted to say? I'm sorry.
Yes, I was just going to point out that NHC over on this side is a 3-story building.
Right.
These are 3-story, and you can see those here in the elevation. And then these are 3-story here in the elevation, but they're slightly higher than these so that they have views out across the golf course. These two units that are here have the office condominiums on the ground floor, but then they have 3-story residential on top of them. So just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that that was.
I really like the design, I like the concept. We need something unique like this. We need different things here that we're finally getting to see. Some creativity and design and everything else as well. And this fits well here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Brown.
Love the Aspen Grove Trail. It's a much-needed asset. All I would say is that between, and I don't know if this is going to fall on the Haven or on Legends, but that extension of that trail further on is challenging at best. I would just suggest it would be really fantastic if you thought about bringing that out to Cool Springs and then over to Mount Catcher, because it's going to dead end behind all that residential for quite a while, I would imagine, until we can resolve that. Just a thought.
I can speak to that a little bit. Our firm, GDC, was hired by the city of Franklin to design this portion of the Greenway Trail. There's going to be a sewer upgrade that's imminent in this area, so the city has decided to wait on that sewer upgrade to install the rest of this Greenway Trail, but it will connect over to Iron Horse eventually.
Okay. Alderman Potts.
Mr. Gamble, I was just going to get a point of clarification. On that last slide that we were looking at, if we could pull that one back up, the
That one right there.
the 3-story structures, and then there we go.
Okay.
And it's, I think that's purple, maybe right there in the middle. That's the only structure that's actually going to be 4 stories,
That's
correct?
the only structure that's for.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think this is, I love the layout and the concept, and to Alderman Brown's comment, I know that the Greenway is something that the Haven is also looking at extending and cost associated with that. But I think this is great, even though this is zoned R6, the fact that you guys are actually, I would say 80% of this is at 3-story rather than 4, 75%, whatever it is. I think that fits much better into the natural topography of the area rather than going high. Yeah.
Okay. Alderman Baggett.
Do you know the height, so the base flood elevation and then the height of the residential first floor? The difference, the
Talking about for the residential
yeah,
first
for the
floor?
residential first floor.
Yeah, Steve, do you have that number? 20 feet above the
Difference?
floodplain? Yeah.
So the first floor is 20 feet
The
above.
residential is significantly above the floodplain.
Okay, well, that's important too. I think, I mean,
And
I know by the letter of the law, there's not much, yeah, but that is important. I mean, that's
Yeah,
important.
and Patrick,
Life safety.
also the bottom floor parking level is significantly above the floodplain line as well, so the garage would not flood as well.
Do you know what that level is?
Yeah, is it 8 feet, Steve?
That's
Yeah.
significant, okay.
Yeah, so we're significantly above, but we're working through the 3 dimensions, so front of the site to the back of the site because of the road placement out front, and that's part of what allows us to do that.
I think that's all I have.
Okay. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes, I want to make sure that there's no issue with the shared access drive, and that there's a clear understanding that the right turn, left, right turn in, left turn out, whatever it is, right turn out, has to be, that's a significant part of the project. So as long as there's no issues with that, I don't have a particular issue, because we've been looking at this area now for years and years, and especially the traffic signal that we've been looking at, that we installed 10 or 12 years ago, whatever it was, and that was never.
Staff has been working with all 3 of the property owners
Right.
for several years now, and we've agreed upon the location of this shared
that's-
access easement,
so the
and
issues-
each project has been using that same diagram to continue to put it on the project.
And this what are what's the square footage of the condominiums?
The condominiums, they're ranging from 3,500 square feet to 4,600 square feet. Is the square footage range inside them.
And since somebody wasn't interested in them as far as affordable, they'll be affordable to somebody. But I would be interested in what the square footage price is.
Yeah, so the price range right now, we're set at the moment, I think it's about $675 a square foot is what the price points are. So they are higher in the market, obviously. We think it still fits well for what we're providing and doing with that. It's not going to service every buyer out there, but we do think it fits the market quite well.
It's an ideal location. We've been, like I said, we've been looking at this for a long time and whatever. I think certainly an improvement as far as I'm concerned, over 85,000 square feet of office space originally. So, yeah, I'm pretty well satisfied.
Yeah, and as far as the response on the road frontage out there, this whole little quadrant between our property, the guys next door, and the guys at the top of the hill, and working with the city, this is just a challenge on a good day for all of us trying to figure out how to deal with that. And I think we've all come to the understanding that we need to have this access, which is really going to become a private frontage road, is really what's going to be. It's not the frontage road that's going to get dedicated back to the city. It's going to be a private frontage road. I think the only thing that's still left to be worked out between everybody is, as we're finalizing what we're doing, and the guys next door, which they're in with Haven, they're working on heading in a direction of finalizing with 297 apartments. And then the property at the top of the hill is still in flux. But the thing we've just got to work out is the logistics of how this frontage road is going to get constructed and utilized by these three properties, and the economics of that together, as well as the long-term maintenance, since this is not going to be a city road. It's something that I think these property owners all are going to have to finish working out. I mean, obviously, from our standpoint, the bad news for me is I'm at the bottom of the hill, so I get the heaviest lift because I get all this traffic. Even with the guys next door, if they put 297 apartments next door, all 297 apartments worth of traffic is going to be coming across my property. I think that's just something that's got to get worked out together as property owners and as the city. That's really the only outstanding thing of how this gets worked out. I don't think it's obviously not a question of can it get worked out, because we're obviously planning for the routing of the road together right now. So.
Okay, we're running a little long. Alderman Blanton.
I too have concerns about just the camaraderie amongst the property owners with the shared driveway. I'm not a real fan of the right in, right out, but I know that, engineers and land designers do these things much more than I do. The other thing that I would say, Amy, you talked about just kind of having some disparity amongst the architecture, considering what's on either side. If you look at the Aspen Grove Medical Building, I don't know how old it is, but it's pretty dadgum old. And then you look over at NHC, both of those are nothing sexy to look at. So I think that this being introduced in amongst the mix gives you a little bit of breakup from our old, tired 1980s brick facade.
Great, thank you, Blanton.
Sexy.
Never know, this is what I'm.
Okay, Alderman Hanson.
I think this is a very dynamic development, and it really encompasses everything that's ever evolving in our work and lifestyle, with the office condo up in the elevator. If there's an aging out of the traditional home, I really like it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Moore.
I'm glad you have this picture up. My only comment, this is not the new City Hall.
Well, we can do one of these similar to this for the city hall.
And I want the rooftop.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 2, discussion of a development plan revision adjusting the building height and block layout for one block within the plan on 27.19 acres located at the southwest corner of the intersection of McEwen Drive and Carruthers Parkway, the REM PUD. So we've got about 20 minutes scheduled for this as well, so thank you. Proceed.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and board members. My name's Scotty Bernick. I'm a landscape architect with Reagan Smith. I'm here on behalf of Southstar and Chartwell. Ralph Canals, Glenn McGee, and Ben Shadle with those companies are here tonight. If, as we get to Q&A, wanted to let you know that. This is a project that was previously approved, and I'll go through that and explain that a little bit. Before I did that, I just wanted to explain where REM was. So here on the screen, you'll see the site. It's a roughly 27-acre site at the corner of McEwen and Carruthers Parkway. It's highlighted there in yellow. And as I mentioned, this was a plan that was approved in 2019. This is the existing plan. I think for reference, just so there was some context behind why we're here tonight, I wanted to give a little bit of detail, a quick detail about the approved plan and sort of what it showed. So roughly, it's a mixed-use development. A lot of standards and guidelines were utilized in this development for activation of the streetscapes, looking at connectivity, and essentially with Envision Franklin and some of the goals of that, that was a big component of how this property was proposed and essentially got approved. With this development, there's 480 multifamily units approved. From an office standpoint, there's 750,000 square foot of office, 100,000 square foot of retail and restaurant. In regards to the hotel, there are up to 700 hotel keys with a total density a little over 1.3 million square feet on that. And basically, we're here tonight because we're ultimately going through the process to request a minor change, specifically to the project phasing, and secondly to the multifamily building height within a specific phase. And I'll point that out here in a little bit. And sort of ask, so why the minor change? Essentially, we've looked at a few things. Again, we'll show this on the next slide, but we're looking at a component where we submerge the parking structure below grade. That's allowed us to add a lot of usable open space beyond what was approved. It also is an update and sort of a response to market conditions. That's specific to the phasing and things that we've learned even since 2019. Also, we're prepping for site plan submittal here in the near future, with a goal to get this thing kicked off and start some work on it. And ultimately just continue to evolve to the highest standards. So REM is for the gold standard, and something I've been blessed to do is work with a team that continues to look at those details that really matter on a development between architecture, connectivity, really just this place-making thing that's so important. I will note that we are not revising any of the uses or any of the use locations that were approved in 2019. We're not requesting any change to the overall approved density that was approved. We're not proposing any changes to any of the required improvements that were agreed upon. We're maintaining all of the external ingress, egress points around the site, so no changes there. We're maintaining the minimum open space, and actually with this, we'll be adding to it that we're not using to meet the open space, so I'll show you that next. Again, really keeping the character and the intent of the approved plan that came before all of us. Here's the first slide to show just the phasing. In the top right corner, you'll see that was the existing approved phasing. So in short, the top two, where phase 1 and phase 2 are, we're just switching those around. So the middle block that's highlighted with a dashed yellow line in the red area is what we're proposing to be phase 1. Again, that's highly based off market conditions, as you all can imagine, so won't go into a lot of detail there. Here's a illustration of the proposed plan that we're revising. The top site data, I won't go over that because none of that changed. It's all the exact same density and everything I mentioned before. Specific revisions and what I would say improvements to the plan is to, again, submerge the parking structure. So if you recall on the approved one, you could see it from the aerial. It was exposed to sort of the south to the streetscape. And what we're doing here is taking that and putting it all subgrade. We're also, by doing that, it continues to activate the streetscape. That was probably one of the most key elements of the approval plan is what is that experience you have as a pedestrian? What's the experience you have as you're driving down the street? So maintaining that, again, submerging the parking structure with units and/or components of this multifamily. That could be, a fitness center, something like that. That would be along the facade there. The other item we're requesting is a change to the building height. Here on this diagram in the middle, you'll see on the left, there's a 11-story component with the 12th story being a penthouse and a clubhouse with a rooftop amenity on the top. And then to the right is a 5-story with a basement level that also has a courtyard amenity in the middle. I'll show you next sort of a contextual slide because in plan view it doesn't really speak until you sort of see the vision that was created and approved there. So I'll pull that up next. In order to do this, by taking the parking and putting it subgrade and taking these elements, it allows us to put this really, really nice usable plaza in between this. That plaza creates a very nice pedestrian corridor that's for people only, so no cars. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is sort of above and beyond, I call it the icing on the cake of the open space. A lot of the open space, and given I have 20 minutes, I won't go into the approved stuff, but there's a central spine and a large amenity plaza in the overall development. This just gives it one more area that's usable. It's flat, and I'll show you that illustration next. Here you go on the top left. Again, it's just sort of a plan view. The next two images on the top are the garages. They're subgrade. I won't spend a lot of detail, but essentially, if you're looking at the screen, on the garage, on the bottom side, there's an elevation change from REM Drive down to REM Trail. So as that building changes, as the grade changes, that's why the building has a 5-story with a basement. So on the basement side, on the low side, that's where we're seeing that show up. So those you'll see sort of all subgrade. That a little bit of that tan illustrates where it's exposed to the trail. And then each layer here, as it goes up on the middle level here, you can see how the product wraps around that garage and again helps activate that streetscape. The bottom illustrations show the height of the buildings in two different cross sections. As I say, 11-story with the 12th-story penthouse. Again, that's sort of on the low side. As you're familiar with the site at Carruthers, and you look up, this is on that lower end of the site. The property to our west continues to climb. I don't know if there's an appropriate name. It's for the Franklin site right next to us. Continues to climb. And then this other illustration shows from REM Drive to REM Trail, and this is the one on the bottom right. And what that's showing is basically you have a flush condition for that plaza that sits on top of the parking structure. So someone on that level could walk in from the streetscape, utilize that area, and then we'll have a couple different means and methods to get down to that lower end. Here's some character imagery just to sort of paint the picture of what we're chasing. On the rooftop pool terrace, we'll have a pool, an amenity deck. Likely, as I said, there would be a clubhouse of some type up there to serve this amenity space. And in doing so, we're essentially creating 2 pool amenity areas for each of, it's one building, but for each of the components with an internal plaza. The internal plaza here, we're showing sort of a garden court promenade. And again, that's just a very usable space that allows for placemaking experiences and again, just for pedestrian only. We have another illustration here, the Spanish Steps. That's just sort of a play on of piazza overseas, but essentially just how it would work and make up the grade. And by doing that, you maintain the majority of that entire plaza to be flat so that it works with the grade conditions. Again, some other illustrations there at the bottom of just sort of the vision for this component of sort of these changes. I'll leave, probably this is the last slide here. This was essentially the graphics and the massing that we had shown before and got approved. On the left, let me say this, the one on the left, it shows our proposed component in there. So if you're looking at the orange areas, I've highlighted the stories, the approved stories on this development. So sort of on page left or screen left, you'll see a 9-story multifamily component. Then along Carruthers, you'll see a 10-story hotel with office above, a 12-story office. As it wraps the corner of Carruthers and McEwen, you'll see the 12-story hotel there. As it sort of works its way up towards the interstate, you'll see an 8-story office. And then again, as it continues to climb, you'll see a 7-story. So the middle component there, again, in sort of the top middle, shows the 11-12 with the 5 and a basement block that really fits into the context of the intent of the plan that we've had all along. Again, I think when you look at this, you really have to understand the existing topography, and as this sort of sits low, and then whatever is developed to the west of us towards the interstate will likely continue to sort of climb. So with that said, want to respect everyone's time and maybe the 20-minute window. I'll turn it over for Q&A, and the gentlemen here I mentioned are here for questions and answers. Thank you.
Okay. Staff.
Similarly to the last project, this project has been, is a little bit earlier in the project review process, so they've only had a pre-app, whereas normally they would have had a pre-application initial submittal, the benefit of that. I will say staff doesn't have any critical issues at this point with this project. And this, because the nature of the revisions are minor, this will be a project that comes to Planning Commission and will stop there. So I'm available for any additional questions if you have.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to questions or comments. Marcia's not here yet? Okay. Commissioner Franks.
Oh, it looks very nice. Well done.
Great. Commissioner Harrison.
No comments at this time.
And I have just a couple. There's a lot of parking on this site, and I know that we had some issues with Franklin Park with respect to parking structures and things like that. Have we resolved how all that fits with this project going forward?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of phases. I'll tell you with this, what I'm calling phase 1 now, it's completely parks itself internally in the garage. Beyond that, there was an approved shared parking component for the overall development, which hasn't changed. So as the, whatever the unit count or ratio is, we're required to meet that, and this block meets
Right.
it by itself.
Okay, and in this first phase, all the parking is being sub-level parking?
Yes, sir. There'd be sub-level parking, maybe a tiny bit of on-street parking, but that's
Right.
really more for the streetscape component than it is to serve the development.
Okay, great, thanks. Commissioner McLemore.
No comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Mann.
No comments.
Alderman Peterson.
No comments.
Commissioner Williamson.
I just say I like the more activated streetscape with the plaza, and the idea of reducing the visibility of the parking garage.
Great, okay. Alderman Berger.
Okay, we've gone around and around about this one. I like the fact that you're doing more parking underground. We need to either have parking underground or we need to have parking garages rather than surface parking so much, and I think we're utilizing the land a lot better. Love the fact that you've done that plaza open space. Two things. I don't like the fact you've got a 12-story on that corner. I just find that to be lopsided. I find it to be heavy, and I think it feels very heavy on that corner. because it's so up close. I would like to see something a little less ostentatious up there in the corner, so you could actually see through the site a little bit better and put the height towards the back. I just, we talked about that earlier. I saw that, but I didn't realize it was 12-story right in the corner. It just seems so gigundous, when you're driving around and you've got this big structure on the corner. There you go, Ralph. So, it just seems to me it needs to be lower. I know we have the office buildings across the way, the glass office buildings, but they're back in a little further. They're not right on a corner. We don't have anything on the corner. We have, even the hotel is not right there on the corner. And across the street, catty corner, you're not going to have anything on the corner. You're going to have an open park. It's going to be, because of the floodplain there, you can't have anything, so you're going to have an open park area. And then also in the corner for Ovation, you're going to have some open space on that corner. So you're the only one with the corner with this large, tall office building. And to me, I think it just seems off kilter.
Actually, that was intended, is intended to be a hotel.
I know.
Yeah, on the corner. That's what was approved in the approved plan.
Yeah.
The beauty of, I guess, your discussion tonight is, and even though it's not been a very beautiful thing for us in the development world with the economy and how it's changed through COVID and what you can build and what you can't build economically to make things work, we have a project we can now start, will allow us to build. The market's going to accept what we can build, and which will allow us to do some grading and some other things, and a lot of infrastructure needs to take place. The market may bring something different to us in the future other than what's on the corner. We may need to come back and ask to do something different, and that would be the appropriate time, I think, for us to talk about what we might do that would be different.
If you go ahead and that happens on the corner, I would suggest you be extremely careful about your design. I think you're working with Chartwell maybe, or somebody.
They're partners.
Part of, yeah. Be extremely cautious of how the design looks then, because you don't need a block building. You have to offset it with the facade. Everything has to be different if it's going to be that close up front.
Our approved development plan had a lot of imagery that was with it. It wasn't part of this request tonight because it was already approved.
Yeah, because you're going to drive by there, and all those corners are going to be open, but this corner, and then you're going to go, whoa, You don't want something like this on all four corners. You're going to feel like you're driving through a tunnel. The only last thing I would say, the only thing I'm really super disappointed in, and we haven't been able to talk about this, I mean, COVID just threw everybody for a loop, is a pedestrian bridge that we had talked about, we had met about and talked about that when Pat Emery had owned that property, about doing a pedestrian bridge over there between the two properties across the street that Boyle now owns and Northwood Raven owns. So I had talked to them about it, and because of the design and everything, it may not be practical for you to bring that pedestrian bridge across McEwen and make it look great, have a gateway into McEwen and have that whole area have its own village feel. But if we can't accomplish that, I'm going to ask that we work with Boyle to do a phenomenal crossing for pedestrians there at the light, because you're going to have to get these people back and across the street, because what Boyle's planning, what you all are planning, you want these people, we want people to use these places and keep them alive. And we've got to get people back and forth from the apartments to the condos to the restaurants to the places of work. And we need to get them crossed, and you can't get them across McEwen just with a traffic light. We have to get a major presence of a pedestrian crossover with pavers on McEwen or whatever, and maybe a median strip in the middle. We have to do something really awesome there if we're not going to do a pedestrian bridge.
I believe we'll have the opportunity to visit that. It's just as important to us in our development as it is to you.
Yeah.
In a sense, we need it activated to support any of the commercial uses we're going to be able to bring there.
We're a day late and a dollar short that we did not go ahead. And a lot of things interfered with that plan that we looked at for the pedestrian bridge, but so be it. If there is a possibility of that and you want to talk to Boyle, I would suggest that. I would ask for you still to talk to them and have a conversation if there's a possibility of trying to look at that. But if not, then we have to have a major conversation about how we make a major presence of a pedestrian safe crossing, and not just a little walkway. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman
Roger.
Brown? Okay. Alderman Potts?
I just had a quick question regarding the proposed trails and parkland dedication. It's tough to see, and maybe it's in the details and I just didn't see it, but how large is that space and what exactly are y'all looking to do?
It's actually 5 acres that we added to our initial submittal when we were going through the original process for approval. And it's all gonna be a 5-acre parkland dedication with biking and pedestrian walking trails. That we're doing a trailhead, and that's all been spelled out as part of our original development plan. So
Okay.
all the amenities are actually listed on the plans.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Baggett?
So on the phase one, are you adding additional square feet to the building?
We originally had anticipated 320 units. There'll be 340 units on this particular footprint. That's what we
So the new
calculated based on-
footprint's
based on that.
340?
But
The new footprint is 340?
between the two structures, it'll be 340 as opposed to 320.
As
But
opposed- okay.
our overall density for the project that's approved is 480, and which will leave another 140 for the other component that we're not going to be building as phase one. That component is on the south end of the project.
Okay, there's two buildings there. So those will be deducted from the other two buildings?
They'll be deducted from the overall 480 units that were approved.
Thank you.
Alderman Barnhill?
Did I understand this does not come back to the board, it only comes back to the planning commission?
Yes, because we're not changing any zoning or density or use. It's literally just a phasing of the construction because of what the market has dictated to us that we really need to start with in order to be able to do all our infrastructure.
Well, guess what? I don't have a question.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Blanton? Okay. Alderman Hanson?
No comments or questions.
Mayor Moore?
No comments or questions?
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank everybody for their time.
Appreciate it. Emily?
Well, I know you're all ready to talk about the joint workshop, but since we have some consultants here to speak about City Hall along with some of our city staff, and we're running a little behind, I'd like to put the joint conceptual workshop presentation and discussion on January's agenda so that we can leave ample time for the City Hall presentation and discussion. I would like to recognize Dwight Kaiser, who's here tonight. He's the chairman of our Development Services Advisory Commission, and their commission has been tasked with looking and reviewing our planned unit development process with that development plan process that we have that accompanies our PD zoning district. And this joint conceptual workshop is such a central part of that overall process. I just wanted to recognize him and thank him for being here tonight. And we will be talking about this in an upcoming meeting instead.
Great. Thank you, Emily.
Let me just add real quick, Mr. Chairman, just thank you all for being here. This is really helpful. Part of the point of that discussion is to see that this can be very helpful in the development process. It is so important in that it enables us to all hear each other earlier in the process. And we have had some challenging development planning related items in the last few months. And it is, I think, possible that the way we use this joint workshop helps us do a better job in managing some of those difficult questions. And you'll see some of the structure, we're trying to be more direct in identifying what might be issues down the line so that you can be thinking about it, give us feedback, and hopefully it helps the process as a whole. We'll talk a little more about it next month, but thank you again for being here and engaging in the way you are.
Great. Okay, we will go then to item number 4, presentation on the new City Hall preliminary master plan and round 1 public outreach results. So Vernon, lead off with you.
Thank you, Chairman, Planning Commissioners, and Aldermen. We're excited to be before you, and Kelly, Anna Ruth, and Matt are going to share with you really the culmination of where we're at. at this first milestone in redeveloping the City Hall site. And I thought, since we have new aldermen here, that it would be prudent to tell you how have we gotten here and the decisions the previous Board of Mayor and Aldermen made. Back in 2020, shortly after we all became aware of COVID and the uncertainties that they were going to impact us, not only our individual lives, but as we served the city and economically as well. And the board was very specific that they wanted to establish milestones that would allow them a decision point as we move through this multi-year process. And that first milestone is coming up that we'll bring back to the board probably in February, that you're going to be seeing tonight, and that's the preliminary master plan. The second milestone that we'll be asking for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to endorse will be the schematic design. And when we come back with the final preliminary master plan, we'll come back with a scope and services and cost estimate to prepare that schematic design, and then an updated cost to redevelop the City Hall, because times have changed, inflation has occurred. And then after the schematic design, the third milestone will be the construction drawings. So we'll ask again for your approval of the schematic design, a scope of services for the construction drawings, and then another cost estimate, and then finally, we'll get in and be able to proceed, hopefully, with redevelopment of the site and a new City Hall. The preliminary master plan. There's many goals, and Kelly, Anna Ruth, and Matt will share those with you because there was substantial engagement. But the first and the two goals I want to highlight are, number one, are the space needs, the programming document for the city team that serves the community to ensure there is sufficient space for decades into the future as our community is projected to grow. The second goal, and you received that access to the document, it's well over 100 pages, and hopefully you can appreciate the effort that has gone into that. The second goal was doing diligence in engaging the community, but also respecting the prominence of this location on Franklin's acclaimed historic square. And you're going to see that tonight. We feel that we've accomplished those two goals as we get ready to seek approval of this preliminary master plan. And as I get ready to turn it over, the preliminary master plan is about mass. It's about scale. It's about concepts of how we'll operate inside the buildings and a lot of pictures. You won't see architecture yet. That'll come in next phases and milestones. So with that, Kelly, Anna Ruth, and Matt, take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the past and present and how our City Hall has evolved over time before we jump into the vision for the future City Hall. So going all the way back to the early 1800s, City Hall operations likely occurred in the county courthouse, which sat in the middle of the square or in a nearby building. And we built our very first City Hall in 1868, and it's shown by the red star on this map that dates back to the 1870s. There's no photo, but this map shows where that original location was, and the green star shows where our current facility is, so it's right across the way between the ladies' shoe wear place and the Fifth Third Bank. And we believe it burned down in 1883. So then the city built its second City Hall in that same location on the square, and you can see it to the right of that tower in the photograph. And we rented out the upper floor as an opera house for 300 people for a while. And that burned down in 1891. There's no foreshadowing
The history
here.
of the fire department at different times.
Please take this moment to let
This
me
So we cleared away the rubble from that fire and sold off part of the land to the left. and built a smaller city hall in 1892. And it's the only one that still stands today that's a historic city hall. And we rented the upstairs out to the Knights of Pythias there, but operated in that building for almost 70 years until we outgrew that smaller footprint. And with nowhere else to go on the square, we moved out to West Main Street to a funeral home. It was fully remodeled to remove all objectionable characteristics. And yes. But we still held our BOMA meetings in the old visitation room. We outgrew that space, and our planning offices were over on Fair Street behind Zolo's for a while. And in 1979, we started to have the opportunity to return to the square. And it was really controversial because it was a significant cost. And ultimately, it was put up to a vote by the citizens who, in majority, voted to return City Hall to the square. So we purchased the old mall, which was only 7, 8 years old at that time. And we've been retrofitting it and adapting it for City Hall office space ever since. It has an utter lack of windows. It is an old department store layout. It's not conducive for efficient government operations, and it doesn't reflect the quality of architecture given the prominence on the square and the historic context that we're in. And citizens for a long time have realized that this building is not a forever building. And there were significant discussions about the future of City Hall dating all the way back to the 2004 Central Franklin Area Plan, where it said we need to maintain downtown as the heart of the community, as a civic and institutional center, and that we should continue to have our City Hall downtown. And that's reflected in Envision Franklin's statements today as well. And our citizens realize that public buildings are community anchors, and they're intended to be in very public-oriented spaces. They economically benefit downtowns as well, particularly historic downtowns. And they set the tone for the rest of the community, and they should be places where you can come and engage in government operations, and government can effectively serve the citizens. So with that goal in mind, I'll turn it over to Anna Ruth to start talking about the preliminary master plan that has taken the last year and significant public process and engagement to create.
Okay. Well, good evening, Mayor, Aldermen, and Commissioners. We're really excited to be here tonight to share the preliminary master plan with you. I have Matt Taylor here, my business partner with Studio 8 Design. We also have members of our team here. Hi, Gary Seaball with OHM Advisors. They're our architectural partners for the team. And then Dwight Kaiser and Gary Vogren with Kaiser Vogren. They're our landscape architects. So at the beginning of phase 1, the design team worked closely with the city to establish the main goals for the building design. They're shown here on this slide. I'm going to read them out. Meet the programmatic needs of a city hall, balance security with a welcoming city hall, flexibility in design to allow for future growth, provide more parking for the staff and the community, implement modern office design strategies to improve efficiency and customer service, and to promote employee collaboration, promote and support community functions, and we have a sustainability goal of LEED Silver. So on this page is a portion of our programming document, which is here if anybody wants to see a hard copy. And I think you all got a copy from Vernon in an email prior to this meeting, but this is just a summary of our programming document. So you see the pie chart here on the slide shows how the different zones of the building are divided. So we have the public access zone. How do I need a, okay, for pointing? Okay, sorry, getting used to a new computer. So we have the public access zone here, which consists of 36% of the square footage and located on the first floor. The staff and facilities access zone, which is also on the first floor, which consists of 15% of the square footage. the Development Services Zone, which will be located on the second floor, and it consists of 29% of the square footage, and then the Administrative Zone, which is located on the smaller third floor plate at 20% of the square footage. These diagrams here are adjacency diagrams showing how all these zones relate to each other, and the stacking diagram gives you an idea of how the massing starts to step back from the first floor to respect the context, but also shows you how they're organized floor to floor. And then you can see the subgrade parking underneath, which we'll get to later. So I'm going to run through the employee survey results and the community engagement results. For the employee survey results, we had over 110 responses. And the city has also set up an internal website to continue to gain insight from the employees on what they would like to see in the building. I'm going to read through the key takeaways and not go through this in detail, just in the interest of time. From the employees, we heard offer daylight and views for staff, include a variety of different sized enclosed conference rooms, include an inviting and secure lobby to improve the customer interface, promote environmental and physical wellness, incorporate security measures that promote safety for all, include outdoor seating and furnishings and a rooftop deck or green roof, incorporate additional employee parking, include a welcome center. The entrance should face public square, be designed in a way that reflects the existing architecture of downtown, be welcoming, modern, while acknowledging the historic architectural style, carry over the current entrance and building location and parking availability in the future City Hall, and address the current layout and natural light issues of the existing City Hall. So as you can hear, natural light and daylight is a big concern in this building. So these are just summarizing the questions we asked. So the community survey results. I'm going to summarize those in the following two slides. And we received over 950 responses, 650 from the survey, and then we had key stakeholder meetings, which some of you were a part of during the community engagement. And the feedback during the survey and in the community stakeholder meetings was pretty consistent. So the key takeaways from those are City Hall should function as a place for government operations with integrated community spaces and amenities. Include indoor amenities such as a welcome center and community meeting spaces. Provide public restrooms accessible to the public. We heard that a lot. Include outdoor spaces and amenities such as a historic marker or memorial, as well as outdoor seating and furnishings. Incorporate additional parking. Incorporate public art. Include an entrance facing public square with an entry plaza. Reflect existing historic architecture in downtown, and be flexible in design so it can adapt to future growth. So I'm going to get into the building diagrammatic plans now. So I want to orient you guys on the slides, the floor plans, to get them big enough so you can see them. We had to cut some of the context out. But Public Square, can you see my cursor on any of these? But Public Square is here in relationship to the plan. The 2nd Avenue parking garage is here at the top of the plan. Church Street would be to the right of the plan, and 3rd Avenue is labeled at the bottom of the plan, just to orient you. So we heard from many in the community and among staff that another above-grade parking structure would not be desirable on the site, since there already is the 2nd Avenue parking garage. Then we did a lot of site analysis studies as the design team and determined that access and accommodation of an above-ground parking structure does not fit within the site and along with the City Hall building. So we went to subgrade parking. This plan for underground parking maximizes the parking count to 204, and it would be in addition to the 299 spaces that are currently located in the 2nd Avenue parking garage. The idea here would be that the parking would be secure parking for staff during City Hall hours, freeing up the 299 spaces in the existing 2nd Avenue parking garage for the public during the weekdays. So moving on to the first floor, again, Public Square is here in relationship to the plan. We are incorporating the entry plaza that we heard a lot from the community and feel like it would be a good entry piece to the City Hall. We've aligned the front wall of the building with the front wall of the county courthouse, which is here at the bottom of the plan, to complete the geometry of the square. So as you enter the lobby, there will be a coffee kiosk and a greeter station that we think could double as a visitor information desk. The lobby serves as a good pre-function space for the boardroom, which you don't really have right now. We just have pretty much a corridor. And the boardroom is along the 3rd Avenue edge of the building. There's a service waiting area off of the main lobby that provides more audible and visual privacy for the customers in visiting the court and revenue, just because some of those customers are discussing sensitive matters. As you move down in the plan, the red zones are the shared staff only zones, so there's some meeting rooms for staff. The public restrooms are located on either end of the building, which is something we heard from the public, so they would be accessible after hours for the public use. The staff and facilities access zone, that would consist of facilities, maintenance, IT, and storage, and those areas are conveniently located next to the loading zone that would be along the back alley. There's a staff and facilities access area here. This is what we would call the muddy boots entry for the building, which is where inspectors would come in the morning, you know, get their stuff for the day and go out, so it's really accessible for them. The boardroom would have multiple ingress and egress points, because we know that you struggle with one set of doors for getting in and out of meetings right now. And then we have a monumental stair. We heard a lot about connectivity between the departments, so we've incorporated a monumental stair in the lobby that helps in wayfinding for the public to get from the 1st and 2nd and 3rd floor. They can kind of see from one floor to the next, but also promotes connectivity and efficiency in the staff's operations. So you can see in some of these photos, we have examples of what a monumental stair would look like. We have an example of a coffee kiosk that could be in the lobby. This picture number 4 is from Middle Tennessee Electric. It's a service counter. And we took some tours of different facilities around Franklin, and this is one that the Court and Revenue Departments really responded favorably to on how their customer service counters work. So behind the boardroom, there's going to be an executive sessions room similar to image number 7, but that's a lot bigger than what you would need, but it's similar in kind of how it would operate. And then 5 and 6, those images would be an alderman drop zone that would also have a kitchen that would serve between the training room, which is where, you know, in this meeting rooms block, and the boardroom. And then there's other meeting rooms for the community, because we heard a lot from the community that they need additional meeting room space. There's also room for staff fitness, locker room, and clinic that would face the alley or the 2nd Avenue parking garage for an easy exit from those areas. A what? I can't hear you.
What's the abbreviation here?
Oh, support. But that would be the clinic area. I was like, I thought you were saying, what's up? I was like. Clinical, like a medical clinic.
One-stop shopping.
We just go by Dr. Moore's office,
And you still haven't paid me, Clyde.
Okay, moving on to the 2nd floor. As we discussed earlier in the programmatic diagrams, the development services zone will be located on the 2nd floor. So visitors would go up the monumental stair or up the public elevator to a service waiting area that would have access to one long service counter, which will help in the efficiency of service to customers. Development services zone consists of BNS, engineering, planning, and fire administration, which is all along this green block. The building starts to step back from the 1st floor footprint to start to respect the residential character of 3rd Avenue and Church Street, once it gets past the courthouse annex. And the courthouse annex corner is right here where my cursor is. And so there will be green roof and terrace opportunities for staff to enjoy the outdoors and look over Third Avenue and the park that we're proposing here in the master plan. This crosshatch area is designated as future expansion space. It wouldn't be built in the initial master plan, but the first floor would be structurally designed to be able to support a second level in the event that it is needed in the future, because the majority of the growth is projected to occur in the development services zone. I forgot to mention that this red elevator, this red EGR, EL, is the elevator and egress down to the parking garage for the staff. There's public restrooms and staff restrooms on each floor. We heard a lot from staff about having adequate restroom facilities that are separate from the public, and then meeting rooms for staff and the public on the second floor as well. Moving on to the third floor, all of these images on, okay. All of these images on this slide are showing the welcoming and inviting characteristics that we would like to include on this floor. So as you come up the monumental stair or the public elevator, you come to a waiting area that is warm and inviting for those visiting the administrative zone. So the area of the administrative zone that's located along Third Avenue would have administration and legal. And the administrative zone along the backside of the building facing the Second Avenue parking garage would have finance, purchasing, and human resources. We've also planned for a large break amenity room on the end of this plan for all of staff to enjoy, that's conveniently located next to the staff elevator and egress stairs, so they could get up here and enjoy the green roof and the break room and have easy access to human resources as well in the administrative zone. There's meeting rooms up here, as you can see, public meeting rooms, and staff and public restrooms as well. The building, as you can see, steps back from all edges on the third floor, again, respectful of the residential feel and scale of Third Avenue and Church Street. And the only portion that's up against the wall of the second floor is behind 231 Public Square, which, as you know, is a 3-story building with a fourth-story rooftop. So all of these pictures kind of show you the monumental stair and just the feel that we would like to have on the third floor and in the break amenity and image number 8. So here is the beginnings of the massing. Like Vernon said, this is just massing to try to start studying the height, massing, and scale of the building in relationship to the context. We've had one meeting with the Design Review Committee, DRC, of the Franklin Historic Zoning Commission, where we got a lot of good feedback, and we've had some good feedback from the community survey about the height, scale, and massing that we're going to take into schematic design and start working with the city closely on furthering these designs. So you see the different views from perspectives along Public Square, and then the aerial shows you how the building starts to step back and break down in scale and massing as you travel down Third Avenue. So in the master plan, we identified with Kaiser Vogren, who are here, different areas of the site that we wanted to focus on in the master plan design. So the first focus area is that pedestrian alley that's between the Second Avenue parking garage and the City Hall building. Right now, it's not very pedestrian friendly. There's trucks that make deliveries, it's treacherous, so we want to make it a much nicer experience, because this is going to be the first impression that a lot of the public will have when they're visiting City Hall or Main Street or the Public Square. So we're looking at different ways we can incorporate better paving, like in image 1 with plantings. And then we also have started looking at separating this loading and facilities access zone that we talked about earlier, where facilities is located in the building. They're to the south side of the ramp into the parking garage. So that parking garage ramp provides a good separation between the loading activity and the pedestrian activity along the alley. We've also provided access to Church Street to improve vehicular flow. And then the ramp down to the subgrade parking is aligned with the alley, the current alley out to Second Avenue. what we're calling the pedestrian promenade is that area that you walk between 231 Public Square and City Hall. We are setting the building back further to make the width of that promenade more gracious and a good extension of the entry plaza that goes into the City Hall building. The entry plaza that we have designed relates in size and aligns with the entry plaza into the courthouse. So it's a nice kind of completing the geometry of the square. The next area that we have, as the building starts to break down in height, massing, and scale on 3rd Avenue, like I've said, there's little pockets of courtyard spaces and deeper streetscape to start to address the residential character of the buildings across 3rd Avenue and Church with their front yards. There's a green space right here where my cursor is, next to the current Cornerstone Church. We're looking at a park that could have some sort of tree grove or grand lawn like images 4 and 5, and provide a pedestrian connection across to a potential garden next to the existing pull-type theater that could be reminiscent of the D.B. Cliff Garden that was once historically underneath the 2nd Avenue parking garage. D.B. Cliff was a alderman. And so image 6 shows kind of an idea of what that smaller garden could be. So I'm going to end here. We tried to focus more on the building tonight so you could really understand how we have incorporated all the programmatic needs for staff. And this gives you a visual of what Kaiser Vogren is envisioning for all those focus areas for the master plan. So I'm going to just open it up for questions now, and because I would like to get the discussion going.
Great. That's impressive. So we will go in accordance with our list here. Commissioner Allen, do you have any comments or questions at this point?
A whole lot of things, but I'll just limit to this. You mentioned D.B. Cliff, Alderman. Who exactly is that? You mentioned a park named after D.B. Cliff. Who exactly was that alderman?
He wasn't, I don't remember the time period at which he was an alderman, but very involved in the city. He started a garden. His son was, I believe he was a doctor.
Well,
right?
they're related to the
Yeah.
McPhails. You know, Dr. McPhail's office. Later on, the McPhails married into the Cliffs. I'm not exactly sure how all that happened, but there was always a community garden that they would plant flowers every spring that the community
he was
could
tied
enjoy.
He lived
He was tied
along
to the
Second Avenue there as
Yeah.
well. So,
Okay, Clyde.
She's not here tonight.
Clyde.
But recalling
Naughty
that garden
Clyde.
along Second
Okay.
Avenue gave us an opportunity to also help create some sensitivity and
Okay.
buffers around the Pull-Type Theater and the historic
Gotcha.
greenhouse on the
Gotcha.
corner.
That just caught my, okay. But one of the things that you mentioned about the scale and all that, well, I'll talk to you later about that, but, so not to prolong this meeting, but, okay, thank you. That caught my ear. Okay.
Thank you, Marcia. Commissioner Franks.
Well, I think it's a fabulous presentation. How many square feet is this building?
112,500,
Counting the parking garage?
not counting the parking garage.
So, a few things, your verandas or your balconies, will you have cover roofs over those?
As the DRC and Historic Commission feel comfortable with them. So I think they'll
We never had a veranda that didn't leak. I mean, and I've built them a lot of homes, and
yeah.
we've always gone back on houses that didn't have a cover on the patios or the long porches, and built covers for people that bought those houses that wish they'd had a cover. So the covers, I think your idea of trying to incorporate an architectural style with those covered patios, the staff would enjoy those better
Yes.
than they would that hot sun or
Definitely.
that inclement weather. But other than that, it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Harrison.
I think it was a great presentation, and I have no comments at this time.
Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to point out that I love the use that, and maybe my comment kind of runs in conflict with Jimmy's, because I know we've got a lot more, there are a lot of really interesting applications of the use of green roofs, and there are a lot in Nashville, a lot of green roofs in Nashville that are going on. And I think maybe some of the construction technology is maybe advancing to the point where we're protected from some of the leakage issues maybe that may have been in place in the past. But it's important, I think, as a city, we're serious about enforcing appropriate stormwater regulations, the use of green roofs to infiltrate rainwater and things like that, and to do that on our own projects is important. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLemore.
You said the sub-parking would be about 200 additional spaces?
Yes,
Okay.
204 right now.
Yeah, because we have parking issues, everybody knows that. How many
Yes.
employees does the city have? Because
About 210 that work in City Hall.
okay, so, and you mentioned that would be the parking primarily for the employees, so that would leave the upper parking, and the Second Avenue parking garage for
Correct.
for visitors, and because we do
All
have,
299 of
yeah,
them.
it's so hard to find parking anywhere. Everybody knows that. I'm not
Yeah.
saying stuff you don't know, but, okay. Great design. I mean, I really like the concept.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Mann.
Yeah, no, like it, I have a question about the parking garage entrance. I think it makes a lot of sense to put it there. I have a lot of concerns on how we're actually gonna get to that entrance, because I know if you turn right on to Second Avenue, you have to go through the bank, drive to get there. Or, I guess, well, can you turn off Second Avenue right and just go straight into it?
Yeah, so that's the
now?
reason, we
So
worked
that's-
with engineering on that, and that's the reason we aligned it with that Second Avenue
Okay.
alleyway.
I wasn't sure if we had the ability to do that, because I didn't know who owned, some of that property right there, so.
We have the ability to do
Okay,
that.
okay. That was my biggest concern. And then the other one that was an interesting point was the restrooms. I hadn't thought about that, but this being a civic building certainly makes sense to have public restrooms for folks that are enjoying the square. What is the thought there, to keep those internal and have a separation of doors
Yeah.
similar to what we do here? Or are you gonna have an externally accessible door? What's the thought there?
That's a great question. So, you see here, VES stands for vestibule. So it's a similar situation to the airlock you have right now with your
Okay.
restrooms, so that they could only get into that vestibule and into the restrooms. And after hours, similar to down here, we had this vestibule, so we'd have a lockdown point right here, and you would be able to go into the restrooms off of the vestibule. So see where it says VEST? You see where my cursor is?
She's on the south end of the
Yeah.
building now. Towards
Do
Church
we have
Street.
I can maybe.
See the
point-
white area between the yellow and the blue?
side of your screen.
Yeah, there's a vest.
Yep.
And a vest on the
Right
left.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there would be, it's kind of like what's here. There's an airlock or like a vestibule where there'd be a lockdown point at the interior wall, and they'd be able to go into the vestibule and into the restrooms and back out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great,
So how many restrooms would be? in those
A lot more than you have now. There's probably six stalls per restroom. And we did them on either end because this is going to be a longer building, and there's going to be that proposed park on one end. We thought, it'd be nice to have restrooms right there at the park.
But that was a good question.
yeah. So just a couple more questions as I you ran through them. For the space allocation, are there going to be any spaces allocated for, like, I know they call them wellness rooms now, but like nursing moms, things like that?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
that'll all be built in. And then the last thing I have to say, and going back to the parking, and I don't know if it's appropriate at this stage, but I think I would like for that to remain free of charge, given that it's a civic building. I think that's really important. So that's all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
Alderman Peterson.
There are a lot of things that I'll be interested in, but some of them are just kind of overall ideas. Those monumental stairs, where can we see some places that have things like this? And I think you mentioned tours of some local, maybe offices and everything. give us some places that
Okay.
we can look at. Actually, I was over at the factory, and there are really some stairs over there that,
Yes.
that do this, but the other thing is, I'm just wondering how many people are going to be going up the stairs. Now, I'm a person that lives in a two-story house, and I go up and down the stairs, you know, I don't know how many times every day. But I'm still thinking, how many people are going to come and want to walk up those stairs? And they go all the way up to the third story,
Yes,
is that
ma'am.
right?
Mhm.
I really want to think about that.
Okay.
And also, it means that there's nothing on the second floor and the third floor in that, you know, in that open area and everything too. But I am concerned about them with
Okay.
many respects there. On the, also in talking about the, as I say, just giving us a chance to tour some places or look at some places. And also, I noticed there were some things about, somebody sent to us about some city halls on the square somewhere. But I mean, where are some that we could look at? You know, they were mentioned, you know, in other states and everything. Or maybe they were even just preparing to have a city hall on the public square or something. I'd just like to know where some are, and I think it would be important for us to see what some of them are like, really. I mean, because obviously, it's going to be a lot different from what we have right here, you know. But I want to see it actually, how they work, is what I'm trying to say, I guess, maybe. And in talking about the, you know, underground parking and everything, I've been the one that's talked all the time, and I think Alderman Barnhill has also talked about the property here, and he and I both know that there was some reason that they had to close down those things that were in the basement there. They had to close them. It was not just convenience, but because there were some places that were used a great deal many, many years ago for people to, you know, have meetings and things like that. But also there were offices around and everything. And I want to find out from somebody, you know, what the story was on that maybe decades ago. Because, and again, I have heard from someone years ago who had done some work geologically on not this area here, but on looking at some places that were closer to the river. And he said it showed that the water level was very close to the surface. And I'd like to see specifically someone who, I think you said there's some people that have looked at some of this. I would like to see those results because, as I say, I want to find out, and I certainly don't want us to do anything that would wind up being like the one at the bank, you know.
We understand.
And so that's very important. And as I say, I'd like to see some other places that have done some things. You know, I'm just wondering how they're working. And I don't think I've even seen anything about a boardroom. I mean, I've seen some pictures of some meeting spaces, but I really haven't seen what the boardroom setup would be. So
Yeah.
that would be something to look at.
It's coming in phase 2.
But also I am concerned about, you know, it may be true that we do need some meeting spaces and everything, but I'm not sure the city is going to be the group that gives meeting spaces for everybody that wants to meet somewhere. And because that would be probably very expensive in the long run. And there's some other things too, but those things just come through here. This was very helpful to have the presentation because I looked at all this stuff and I went, you know, I don't know. So it was really helpful to go through.
Good, I'm glad.
And look at all of the things.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Williamson.
I'd like to just say it's really nice to see the ideas coming together on paper and diagrams. Only question I had, is there any thought of pursuing any sustainable building benchmarks on this one?
Yeah, LEED Silver is
Okay.
the sustainability goal for the building.
Great.
So in response to Alderman Peterson's concern with the monumental stair, as you know, sustainability goes further into building occupant health and allowing open stairs and opportunities for people to get health and wellness in their building is part of that goal. And then the green roofs, obviously, and then the open space on the site that we've designed will contribute to that sustainability goal as well. So we want this building and this site to be an example, since it is the City Hall facility.
Great.
Great. Okay. Alderman Berger.
Sure, thanks. Well, one thing, I love it, and all of you and the team done a great job. We're not building this for us. We're not building this for my generation. We're building this for a lot of younger people to come, and I'm glad to see of course, what you put in here for just a placemaker for pictures. I love it because it's showing that you're bringing us, a modern building in a historic area. It's going to look great on the outside, but we're going to be functional for the future inside. That's really important to me because I think it's important to the future generations coming here who are going to be sitting in these seats. Love the fact that you have a lighted and lit and white. You're showing it as a white, lit, lively, enhanced parking garage. So it's not dark. Dark parking garages are not good, and staff doesn't like that. So I like the way you showed that. Hopefully you'll follow through on that. Two more quick things. When you're looking at this for materials and things as you go forward, I was looking at the monumental stairs, which I think is extremely important. It's one of the things that was top on my list. And the reason, and two, that we'd speak to that, because elevators are time wasters. Stairs are great for exercise, because when you're sitting at your table all day, you're on computers, you need to be up and down, and you want to run those stairs. You might take two at a time just to get some exercise. The other thing, Nissan, yeah, you'll do that too. We'll do that together, Clyde. One of the things Nissan did really well is when they designed their staircase, they made them not wide enough that they didn't really waste too much space. They made them wide enough so you had landing spaces, and they actually put couches, they put seating, small seating at that. So people would go up and down the stairs, they'd say, wait a minute, do you have a minute? They'd sit down, they'd meet real quick, and they'd discuss something. They really made it interactive, and people don't like to get on elevators and ride them and wait, punch them, I've got to get going, we got to get going. So they don't want to go down and open up a door and go up a cinder block staircase. They want something that's where we're headed in the modern world, I think. And so I think those things are really important. And also I think that when you get to the point where you're looking at the materials and you're looking at things, you gave some great examples on page 19 of the staircases, wonderful examples of staircases and how they function, and on page 20. And they look great. And two things, meeting space underneath the staircase, remember that, and remember when you're talking about materials at some point, to watch out with handrails and glass and things like that. Remember cleaning, remember upkeep, remember what's the life of a product. So anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Great. Alderman Brown.
So for the sake of time, I'll just, turn on the mic. For the sake of time, I'll just focus on a programmatic thing. So I think one of the greatest things the city does is the work that Melissa and Robert do and the communications team. Not only do we do a lot of work for the city, but we extend that benefit to nonprofits and others. As I looked at how you've got communications within here, not only is it outside of the public area, so I don't know what the public egress into that would be for people who would want to use those facilities, but you're also right next to parking entrance and loading ramp and other work facilities. So, I don't know if you've ever been to our green room studio in the back of this building. You got to drop breadcrumbs to find your way back. But it's, when the air turns on or when somebody opens the women's restroom door outside, we got to stop filming. So I would just encourage you to really think about that communications area. We're only going to be doing more video. We're only going to be doing more of that kind of stuff. And I think we should have a really great offering there for our community for sure.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I failed to mention that, but we did locate them. Oh, sorry. We did locate communications there as well for convenient access to meeting rooms and the boardroom. So when, these types of meetings are getting set up, they're not having to haul mics and everything all over the building to get there. So that's another reason that they're located where they are.
It may just be in the design phase. It's really snappy. I've built about 3 production studios and offices, and it takes a lot of effort. So, okay, great.
Do you want me to, the control room or?
Alderman Potts?
Communication staff also is on the 3rd floor as well. So that's kind of some production area, but then Melissa, Monique will be in the 3rd floor with administration, et cetera, to be connected to that as well.
And also on that note.
And a great overlook of the square, too.
Yeah, that's, Melissa wanted a place to do her interviews and that sort of thing. So we've kind of looked at a place either on this green roof overlooking the square or in this administrative zone for her to do her interviews. So it's a great backdrop, because I understand she's been going to 231 in the past and using that corner side. So.
Okay, Alderman Potts?
First, hats off. This is awesome. Yeah, I mean, this looks great. Great presentation, great way to put it together. Just reiterate what Alderman Berger said just a minute ago. This is not for the next 5 years. This is for decades out, and it's exciting to be part of this. And as Alderman Brown said, in the interest of time, I'm just going to streamline just a couple of ideas or thoughts, because you've heard all the ideas from public input, but as I'm looking at it, I'm excited to see what the exterior of the building will look like and what the side, especially facing the square, will look like. As far as Alderman Peterson said, I'd love to be able to see the incorporation of historical or reclaimed items or pictures, not just reclaimed wood, but anything that we can do to tell that story, especially in that lobby and pre-function area. And I know that's probably something that y'all have already thought of. I see heads nodding. I'd love to see it just based on the presentation here. I'm like, wow, those are great pictures. Kids get excited, adults get excited, and this is a great opportunity. And in those gardens, getting those kids involved, I mean, there could be the opportunity for brick fundraising, things like that in that area. But the part that really excited me was the LEED Silver recognition. I would even challenge us to even go further and to drive that as hard as we could. I didn't hear a mention of solar. Not that I want to put giant solar panels or wind turbines or things like that on the very top, but there's way now with technology, the way that it is, where those can be incorporated. And as Alderman Peterson said, we're looking to really set, I would say, a national standard. And we have that opportunity. So I would challenge us at every opportunity. Great work.
Hey, Roger, may I mention something to his point real quick? One quick point. The Sustainability Commission that I serve on, we've been talking about that. We'll be talking with you all about that. Just wanted to let you know about the LEED certified and the other aspects of that.
Great. Okay. Alderman Baggett.
Thank you. Likewise, great job. I can't imagine consolidating all of the various opinions and now ours. But I do have a number of things. Is there going to be a training room sized, like the training room we have now? There will be a sized room of that scale?
Yes, so where it says meeting rooms right here. I'm sorry, I'm not used to mics. Where it says meeting rooms, in the block right here behind that executive sessions
That's that
room.
kind of room.
That's
Okay.
the training room, and it'll
That's
have
great.
a partition so it can be made larger or smaller.
Wonderful. The coffee shop and the lobby, I mean, the photos, I appreciate that. We did go kind of away from a commercial. I think we should think through that, whether that's realistic, whether that's sustainable, whether, as you walk in and I see the picture number 1, I like coffee just like everyone, but you walk into our lobby pre-function space, and then are we in a cafe? Are we in a government building? You know, what,
Right.
where are we? Is it going to be awkward to come in and out with that space? Are they going to be closing down at 6 o'clock as we're finishing the board meeting? Are they open? You know, is it going
Right.
to be dead as we? So I think there's some considerations there, and maybe that's been thought through and discussed prior to us being here. But definitely something to think about. Maybe that would be less commercial, more like optional for beverages and optional for food, and not necessarily looking, you know, like a retail kind of area as in the picture. Not opposed to having that kind of space for those, you know, that, you know, food and beverage, but kind of what that,
No, that's a good
how
point.
how it will be used. So it's not just dead
Mhm.
when people are here, which is usually at night
Right.
or in the evenings, in the afternoons. Welcome Center has been mentioned. I think it would behoove us not to coordinate with our Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. They've got a great Welcome Center just up the road. I would not like to see the city get into the Welcome Center business. And I think we should coordinate with them on that, and that's probably more operational than anything. On the rooftops, no events on the roofs, right? This board's dealt with that possibly in other areas. I mean, you know, I'm not, you know, I think that we really need to be cognizant that the neighbors will be concerned about that, and as we operationally think through how that rooftop is used, and that's probably not in this design phase, but city staff certainly should be aware of those concerns. You know, one thing, I was looking at the setback on the square, and I was looking at the pictures, and there's really no other buildings on the square with a setback like we have shown here on City Hall. And I understand kind of not the setback on the ground level, on the second floor or third floor setback.
So the lobby's double height, so the third floor setback.
Third floor setback. So 231 is 3 floors straight up. I mean, most of the buildings on the square are straight up. And we have gone 2 stories and then set back. And it is, since we don't know the architecture, it could work quite well with that. But it also could kind of stick out because it doesn't look like the kind of, you know, straight up walls that we see around the square. So something to think about. I know 231 has the 4th floor back to, you know, set
Right,
back, but that's
about 20 feet
because
back.
because of view sheds. So something to think about. I just I know that would be a nice amenity for everyone to have to come out and walk out and see off of the top, but also aesthetically, depending on the architecture, it could also be a distraction, or could not feel right. So just be cognizant of that.
Yeah,
I don't
we've
know if-
heard that. We heard
Have
that
you
in
heard
DRC.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
watch that
you're not
movie.
alone.
Sorry. Last, parking. You know, I think we should be, and a couple of the commissioners mentioned this, I think we should be very careful. We have 200, how many square feet do we have in the city hall now?
80,000.
80,000. So we're going up to 112,000. We have 200 employees now. I would really be, I mean, we're adding 200 spaces. We've got 299 over there. I think zoning would normally require us to have 436 parking spots for a building this size, and we may only have 200 employees now, but there's room for expansion. I think we really should be very, very serious, you know, about our projections of people and how many might work here, how many people this building could support in the future,
Right.
and I'm
We-
sure that's already been taken.
Yeah, we
into
have
account.
it in the,
larger
so
bucket.
we're up to 246 for 2040
246 spaces.
people.
People, okay. And I know that I think maybe some of that parking in the garage is kind of encumbered maybe for 231. I'm looking into that right now, actually. So there's some things that, it may not affect this plan, but I think we should consider, especially as we look at other capital projects and parking downtown, that we're building a pretty much bigger building here. And with that will come parking, both citizens and employees. I'll be done now. Thank you.
Great comments. Thank you.
Right. Alderman Barnhill.
Well, you know, sitting there thinking, if you make this building sexy, I may want to.
What do you think of the pictures?
That's twice tonight you brought that up.
I want to make sure that we don't overlap into the private sector, okay? And I mean, and when I mean that, I mean, if you go down to the hotel, they got meeting space. If you go to other avenues and other projects that's coming before us, they're projecting meeting space. If you go to the theater, you've got a 300-seat meeting area that you could be able to use that. You're probably going to have meeting space at the factory under their new guidelines. So I'll be honest with you, I have a concern with the input from the public that everybody's wanting a place to meet because they're there. And I don't think that a taxpayer-supported facility, built facility, should compete with the private sector. That's not what I want out of the building. That's number one. Number two, I'm gonna go back just a little bit and digress. When this project came up, it came up and scored on a level where there were $638 million in capital improvements projects. There was 300-something million that we projected over 10 years. Correct me, Eric, if any of those numbers are slightly off. Not.
You're in the ballpark.
Yeah, in the ballpark. I'll buy in the ballpark. So what we've got here to the aldermen, to the four of you new ones, and to the public, you've got a project here that if it's $328 million of projected revenue 2 years ago and for the next 8 years, this project is going to take tremendously amount away from some other project because there's only 24 million in the budget for this particular project. Okay? So all of these glorious steps and double steps and whatever else, you know, they're fine. I mean, they're good. What you can't do is you can't go out beyond the scope, and you need to know what the price of this is. I'm gonna go back to 2007, okay? And there's nobody else, we're Bill's on the board, there's nobody else sitting here. The alderman came in, 5 of us, and we were in a project that we could not get out of because we got in so deeply. It's sitting up on Fifth Avenue, sitting up on Columbia Avenue right now. We better make sure that we can afford what we're doing. We better make sure that we understand what we're wanting here, because I don't think, and I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again, I don't think that City Hall now functions the way we're looking at it function. I don't see that many people out there. You now can go you can go pay your water bill, you can go pay anything you want to online. You can go do your plans online. There's no reason to come necessarily to come to City Hall to do your business. Now, we say we want it downtown because that's, I think it was something economically viable or something, but I don't remember what that comment was. But I can't understand why that's necessarily the case. I think that what we've done is, I think we've slightly gotten ahead of ourselves on this. I think it's incumbent upon the city administrator, the board of mayor and aldermen to sit down and look at all of the capital projects, all of them, and your funding, and your projected funding, and see where we are on this. If you will indulge me for 1 or 2 more minutes. When we did the capital improvements projects, there's a possible 225 points. Each alderman and the mayor got 25 for his top project on down. That only got 94 points. If Alderman Peterson will allow me, I don't think she gave it any. I didn't give it any. Alderman McClendon didn't give it any. Scott Speedy gave it 1. And Pearl Bransford gave it 6. So he got 7 out of the 5 votes. He got 7 points. Now, this thing is evolved into we don't know what, but I can almost promise you, it sure doubles 24 million. And then some. And then to each one of us sitting up here, we would have to be elected again or appointed again to ever meet in that building. Elected again or appointed again to ever meet in the building. I think But my point, I want to see what it costs. I want to see capital improve, the projects laid out. We have an opportunity for that. And I want to see what the projected revenues are for the next 10 years to support a $400 or $500 million capital budget.
Let me talk a little bit to that. First of all, that's part of what you'll see in this next phase, and as we talk, first part of this year, we'll start showing you some ranges and give you a sense of that. It is a significantly higher cost. I would note that the parking garage is an $8 million approved project as well. So you've got a little over $33 million in your existing plan. It's going to cost significantly more than that, there's no question. It was a top 10 project. You can count votes or talk however you want to, but it is a top 10 project, and we've advanced it just like any other project. And that's what you expect us to do. But you'll have a chance to look at that. We updated financial projections and models just a month or two ago. And I hear you, and we've talked about bringing back and talking through those. But we showed capacity, and there's additional capacity above what we've got identified as funded, approved projects at this point. And so we'll frame that in the context of what the ranges are of this project, what some options might be for phasing of this project. That's what we're expecting of ourselves, to give you a chance to look at this, look at the broader capital plan, and make informed decisions about where you want to go with this. And that's our job, and we will do that together with you. And so that is part of what this next step is about. I think the direction we'll want to talk about is what option or options you want us to take into this next phase. And what we told you too is that this would be a project we would take kind of step by step. And we're through this, but it's important that we complete steps because we've got a time frame we've got to work on. This project cannot forever be 5 years away. We've got to make progress. And what that looks like, we've got to figure out. And so as we bring those elements to you, we'll try to frame them as the very best we can to help you make decisions that help us make those and plan for it and execute a plan. So I'll stop there, but all good points, all points we've heard, and that are integrated in what we'll bring forward as we make other decisions.
I do have one more request. Peter said the same thing. I'd like to see us, a city hall being built in the last 10 years, compatible with the city being compatible, 85,000 people, whatever it is. I'll give you a break on that. You can do something a little bit different from that, from the 85,000. I want to see that city hall downtown.
What if you set that precedent?
What?
What if Franklin sets that precedent?
Well, and I'll tell you, it's very common to have your city hall in downtown. It is hard to
within the
find
last
city
10
halls that are
years.
not downtown.
These are lifetime buildings.
I guess I'm struggling to understand the point, because it's very easy to see them everywhere.
You go anywhere, you don't necessarily find City Hall downtown now.
Most places, most places.
Built. Newly built.
It's important to remember, city halls are 100-year buildings.
Yeah.
They aren't built every year like office buildings. So you're gonna find historic buildings that have been adaptively reused. You're gonna find historic buildings that have been preserved and added onto, and other buildings with annexes. Those are all largely downtown, because that's where the civic seat.
Cities that have real downtowns
Here's-
have city halls in them.
Here's
It
what
most
you-
likely,
here's what you're doing.
more often than not.
You're putting more traffic, more congestion downtown. You are putting more employees downtown. You're taking 216 employees, but you've also got a garage full of city vehicles over there. So I'm not sure, and to your point, not to yours, absolutely, the property, the land belonged to First Tennessee Bank. The garage belonged to the city. So yes, there's absolutely reserved parking places over there. So
I'll bring the stats for that.
And not everybody has had a chance to talk, but we're not going to resolve these kinds of issues here tonight, and certainly not on my supper hour, which is the next 20 minutes. So if you've got comments, I know there are comments, and I would encourage you to email your comments to the city staff and Alderman Hanson.
Quick things. How much additional expansion space is there in this footprint for future?
So for the future, that was, I think, 10,000 square feet.
And one other thing, I mean, have we thought through the process of where the city hall goes in the interim and when we come out of this building and the timeline to build and how much that's going to cost?
Yes, the city is working on that.
Yeah, that's part of the
internally.
project
We're not
plan.
part of
Yeah.
that project.
Okay. And Mayor Moore?
Very, very quickly. Daniel Bonaparte Cliff died in 1913, and he set a great example for newly elected aldermen to work in the flower garden.
There you go. Okay.
So did R.M. Moore.
So there's a lot of good discussion that's got to take place going forward. So thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. And we are adjourned.